What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So whatever happened to the $5,000 stimulus dividend Doge checks that they were talking about? What happened to that? We haven't heard much. We're going to take a look at some of the headlines and I'll show you some of the different dates there. But when it comes down to it, they're not really talking about that anymore. Why is that? Why are they not talking about stimulus checks for the American people? That's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. If you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. And remember, if you want to send me an email, if you have a story you want to share with me, if you have questions, if you have video ideas, links that you want to share with me, you can send me an email, david@thetecshow.com. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the headlines here. So the top headline here says, what is Doge dividend check? Here's Fishback's update. $5,000 stimulus check status today. Then we have Trump and Elon Musk. Doge dividends might benefit low-income Americans. That was on February 23rd. Doge stimulus check requirements. Who qualifies for potential payment? That was on March 6th. Is Elon really going to send you a $5,000 Doge stimulus check? That was on March 2nd. Newly, $1,700 stimulus check in April confirmed for eligible Americans. I think they're referring to the Social Security Fairness Act there. Trump Doge dividend check could be much less than $5,000. That was on February 25th. Musk makes admission on Doge dividend that would see Americans get $5,000 check. That was on February 19th. How big would a Trump Doge dividend check be? That was on February 20th. So as you see, we don't have anything really recent when it comes to these dividend check. And all this information was coming out before, and people were really excited about the potential of seeing a stimulus check. But right now, things aren't looking too good. And let me start from the beginning, and then we'll get to where we think this will go. So initially, the Doge, or Elon Musk, before the election, was talking about the fact that we need to find waste, fraud, and abuse. And they were talking, at that time, they were talking about numbers that looked like $2 trillion. Even after the election, they said we could save $2 trillion. And so they put together the Department of Government Efficiency, this Doge department. And when they put that together, they were still talking, and Elon Musk was still talking $2 trillion. I think we can save $2 trillion.
Set up Doge.
Yes.
How much do you think we can rip out of this wasted $6.5 trillion Harris-Biden budget?
Well, I think we can do at least $2 trillion.
Yeah!
Yes.
$2 trillion.
And so fast forward past the inauguration. So after January 20th, they were still talking about the fact that $2 trillion is on the table. And we started to see Doge in action. They started to go into these different agencies, and they were locking some doors. They were laying off people. They were saying we're finding cuts here. They were saying we're finding fraud here. They were going into Social Security and saying there's fraud. There's people 150 years old still receiving Social Security checks. All that stuff was going on. And they also had a Doge Tracker. And when you looked at the Doge Tracker at the time, it was $150 billion. That's what they'd already saved. And so a lot of people found that interesting because they started looking at because they also had the places where they were able to reduce funding. So they were showing that. And what some experts started to look into this, and they started to say, wait a minute, this doesn't amount to $150 billion. And so then you started to see, and I was watching the tracker back then, you started to see the tracker go down a little bit and then bounce back up to 150 billion and then go back down and then bounce back up to 150 billion. And so at that point, we didn't know what was going on. And then we heard some news from Elon Musk saying that, you know what, it looks like $1 trillion. We'll be able to save $1 trillion. And that was just, a month ago. And now the latest information that we received from Elon Musk said that he thinks they'll be able to save about $150 billion.
Your fantastic leadership, this amazing cabinet, and the very talented Doge team, I'm excited to announce that we anticipate savings in FY26 from reduction of waste and fraud by $150 billion.
Well, that's where they are right now, $150 billion, according to the Doge Tracker. And so the stimulus checks, they were banking on the $2 trillion. If they were able to save $2 trillion, They were looking at the numbers. 20% would go back to the American people, so they would receive that stimulus check. So each tax-paying household would receive about $5,000. That was the talk. But now that we've gone from $2 trillion in savings to $150 billion in savings, what are we going to see when it comes to a dividend check, a stimulus check per household? And so now the estimate is about $1,000 per household. And it could be even less than that. When you really look at the numbers, it would be less than that. But some experts are still saying it could be about $1,000. And so that's where we are right now when it comes to a stimulus check per household. Okay, so we're not talking about each individual. We're talking about per household. So let's say you have 4 people in the household and 3 of those people are paying taxes. Then they're going to have to split that $1,000. So pay roughly $300 per individual. And I think the big problem with going out there and saying $5,000 per household, okay, and this was a CEO that came out with this initially, and he passed this along to Elon Musk, and Elon Musk said it sounds like a good idea. And then Elon Musk passed it to the president, and the president said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But the problem is you put out that $5,000. And now people, they're saying, well, where's the $5,000? When are we going to get that? And if that never comes, you're going to have a lot of upset people. And they didn't learn a lesson from former President Biden. Former President Biden said that he was in favor of a $200 raise for Social Security beneficiaries. There were a few proposals out there at the time that were providing a $200 raise for people receiving Social Security benefits. But obviously it had to go through Congress, and Congress had to approve it. It never got there. And you still have some people that receive Social Security benefits today that will say that Biden lied to them. He lied to them because he said that he was going to provide that $200 increase to Social Security benefits, even though presidents don't have the power to do that. Presidents don't have the power to provide this stimulus check. This has to come from Congress, but the president got out there. And anytime a president says something and it doesn't happen, you're going to have people that are going to hold him accountable for that. And so that's where we are right now. And it's unfortunate. And I want to show you this. I saw this post. I thought it was pretty interesting. It was coming from Robert Reich. He is a professor, and he was the former labor secretary under Clinton. And let me show you what he said. And so here's his post here. And this is on Instagram. He says, Elon backtracked on Doge savings goal from $1 trillion to $150 billion. Now remember, before he said $1 trillion, he was saying $2 trillion. And the reason why we were hearing $2 trillion is because in 2024, we spent about $1.8 trillion. And so they were going to try to balance the budget off the fighting waste, fraud, and abuse. That was the whole goal there. And if they could balance the budget, then they would have money for the American people. And then they would also be able to have tax cuts for the American people and all of that. So that was the goal, $2 trillion. And that moved down to $1 trillion. And then now, as we see, it moved to $150 billion. And then Robert Reich says, but watchdogs report only $12.6 billion in verifiable savings. Okay, so they're saying here, look, you're saying that you're going to be able to save $150 billion, or you already saved $150 billion. But when we look at the numbers are showing us $12.6 billion. That represents about 0.173% of the U.S. federal budget for 2025. We're losing vital government services for basically nothing in return. And so that's Robert Reich saying, basically, look, we did all of this for nothing. We're really not saving much. And we have a budget that they're working on right now. We have a reconciliation bill that they're working on right now, and they're going to try to move that through Congress. And I think that the deadline date, they're trying to get this done before July 4th. And what's interesting about that is there's going to be spending in that reconciliation bill. So we're probably not going to save any money. We're still going to be running a deficit at the end of the year. We're still going to add to the national debt when the whole goal was not to add to the national debt. But looks like it's going to happen. And so when it comes to stimulus checks, first off, we need to wait. We're probably going to have to wait until next year if they issue any type of a stimulus check, because in July of 2026, that's when Doge will be done with all of the stuff that they're doing right now, looking into all these different agencies. And so after that, that's when I would imagine that they would try to provide some type of a stimulus. Now, the thing that's going to be interesting, there are 2 things that we should be watching. The economy. How is the economy going to react with tariffs and all this stuff that's going on? If we drop into a recession, well, then it's going to be more likely that we're going to see a stimulus check. And that's not going to be this whole Doge dividend. It's probably just going to be a stimulus check just to stimulate our economy to get us back to where we were. Because right now the economy is slowly dipping. And they're talking about, you have experts, you have people who run banks that are saying, look, we think that we're going to be going into a recession. There's a very, very good possibility of that. And with tariffs on top of this, that's probably what's going to happen. We're going to slow our economy so much that people are going to be getting laid off and we're not going to be spending. We're already slowing down. Consumers are slowing down and spending already. And so this is the danger. The danger is we fall into recession. That would mean that stimulus checks are probably likely at that point. But when it comes to this dividend stimulus, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But since it's put out there now, the $5,000, people are going to have that stuck in their head. They're going to want that $5,000. And if the economy really tanks, you're going to have a lot of people saying, look, I mean, it's unfortunate, but we might be in that situation where we start printing money again just so we could provide some type of stimulus for the economy. And basically the way it works is just like back during COVID, we had stimulus checks. So stimulus checks went out. They went out to stimulate the economy because our economy was tanking at that time. We had businesses shutting down. We had people in their houses. They weren't going out. They weren't shopping. And so because of all of that, that's why they had the stimulus checks. And so we could potentially see that again. Now, it's unfortunate because we don't want to go into a recession. Everybody loses in a recession. Even if you get a stimulus check, you're still going to be losing. You're going to have a lot of people losing their job. And prices, they're not going to drop that fast. Right now, we're looking at inflation, yes. And we could still see inflation during a recession, believe it or not. And so not only are you not going to have the money that you had before, you're going to have people that are not going to have jobs, but you're also going to have high prices. And so we'll have to see what happens from here. But I just wanted to give you guys an update when it comes to these dividend stimulus checks. Right now, it looks like if they were to do it today, it would be maybe $1,000 per household. But it's definitely not going to be the $5,000 because that would mean that they need to save $2 trillion. And they've gone way away from that. They're not even talking about $2 trillion. They're talking about $150 billion. So I want to know what you guys think, so let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.